Today I'm sitting here with Davon Thomas, SUA representative, and what other organizations are you a part of on campus?
It's just SUA at this point
Really?
now.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
That's all I have time to do.
And in SUA, what is your particular position?
In SUA, my role is the Vice President of External Affairs.
Okay.
So in that role, it is my job to advocate for students at the local, state, and federal branches of power, along with the UC Regents and the UC Office of the President. And I also serve on the board of directors for the University of California Student Association, which I also am the chair of. So there's another organization I'm part of. It's UCSA.
Is that on campus?
There's no system-wide.
System-wide.
There's an EVP at every UC campus. We make up a board of directors along with two of our interns. And so I chair those board of directors, about 40-person meetings once a month.
And you said you're the chair?
I am the chair.
Meaning you head it?
Yes, I'm the second in command behind the president.
Okay. We're going to get into what all of that means and what you do. First, let's get a little bit of background on you as a person. How did you get interested in this type of work?
I just always loved politics. I think growing up, I liked the history classes. I loved my government classes. I took a law program for 3 years in high school, so I've always had an affinity for civic engagement and things of that nature. And I've always enjoyed it. I think also kind of the mayor of my city, 2008, Kevin Johnson became the first black mayor of Sacramento. And the same year, Barack Obama became the first black president. So representation matters, right? So I think seeing folks in these positions who can do great work, and then you're like, oh, I look exactly like these two, so I can do the exact same work even better, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of always my inspiration to kind of go into politics, was just representation.
So do you think that the work you do is political?
Well, of course it's political.
Yeah, okay. But why? How?
Well, it's politics. I would always think that politics is political in a lot of ways. I've always seen it as a very important thing. It's part of the root of our society is politics. We are in the Capitol all the time, making sure we're speaking in public comment for issues that are affecting students. We are having our quarterly meetings with Jen and Napolitano. I try to make sure that I include as many communities within my work as possible. So when I go to conferences, I'm very intentional about making sure that we have folks from different backgrounds there. I think it's important that folks in different communities who haven't had the access to these resources or institutional support, like SUA does all the resources that it has, make sure they get to have these opportunities to go and speak on behalf of their communities. So I would think allowing communities to speak for themselves is actually very political, because a lot of folks want to speak for them. I don't have any intention of doing that, you know?
Yeah. So external affairs. Can you give me an example of what exactly that means, sort of policy-wise, or the actions that you're taking?
Well, policy-wise and action-wise, think about it this way. So when I talk about fighting for immigration issues in the Capitol, that it affects students, UC students, that's what we're going for. When the UC system says we want to raise tuition on students, students were the ones in the Capitol every week telling the state legislator to bail us out, to fund the UC, to give the UC this X amount of money so they didn't have to raise tuition on us this year. So external affairs is literally anything that's off campus. SUA has one president and 5 vice presidents, and everyone else focuses on on-campus issues. I'm the only one that does system-wide and off-campus issues. So I'm the person who meets with the mayor. I'm the one who's in my office is meeting Jimmy Panetta, so on and so forth, So a lot of my job is to do stuff off campus, and it is a lot of work.
Do you feel alone in that, since you're the only one who does work off campus? Have you had to navigate that on your own, trying to figure out as you go along, or what's that process been like for you?
I wouldn't say so. I think last year I was the chief of staff to the external vice president. So I've had experience in SUA 2 years before I ran. So I was chief of staff to my predecessor, and I have interns. I have 3 interns, and then there's a committee under my office called Lobby Corps, and it teaches students how to lobby, essentially, and how to take policy stances on different issues that affect students. So I do not feel alone. I think when you are the head of the office, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and you are challenged in a lot of ways because a lot of people do you're in this position now, so you have to be perfect, and you can't have any issues, and it's like we're still growing as people. So I think I could be alone in the sense of folks who never let you live because they see you as this entity, and it's like, no, I'm still a person, right? And I think but this work can get a lot. It can be kind of overwhelming at times, but I have phenomenal interns who are supportive, who are fun, who drive, because we drive across the state and I can't drive. So I love having interns. They're really great. They help me do the work, and they're all passionate about it. You know what I mean? This isn't folks like, oh, I'm here just to be here. They're passionate about the work, and that's what's important.
What has been your experience with lobbying? What do you lobby for? How's that process for you? Who do you meet with, and what's that sort of bureaucratic relationship like?
I didn't really care for lobbying at first. I wasn't a person that actually liked to kind of walk around with suits all day in the Capitol. It wasn't my interest, to be honest with you. I just kind of believe in doing the work behind the scenes, kind of getting it done. When it comes to the bureaucracy, it's definitely complex. You have to meet with this person and this person and this person, and they all have different people coming to speak to them. Like, students from UCSA aren't the only ones talking to these legislators, right? There are folks from across the the state. They're like, oh, we want you to vote for this bill and this bill. Sometimes you can only vote for one, right? So sometimes it's about winning and learning how to keep that momentum, and it's learning about losing and how to go back to the drawing board and try again the next year. Because there's not always going to be a win. There isn't always going to be a happy ending. Sometimes things happen. We try our hardest, but they don't go our ways. When it comes to people, we have Mark Stone. We have and then Jimmy Panetta, who's a federal, and then Mark Stone's for state, and then I meet with certain city council members and the mayor. So I think I have a good relationship with these folks. At least my office does, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I personally do, but my office, as an external office, people already know what this office is about, so they're just used to meeting with whoever's from this office.
Yeah.
So I think my office has built a great relationship with these people. If we say, hey, we want a district visit, in the next week or two, we're able to get inside their office. It can be bureaucratic at times, it can be very tiresome. But also an issue that I've had is that different communities don't really want to do the lobbying thing because it's a suit and tie thing, right? They have a distrust for the institution, for the system, so it's understandable. So I would never judge them for that. But it's still trying to incorporate these folks there because policy still matters, right? Whether you like the bureaucracy and the suit and ties or not, there is still power in policy. So making sure the communities are underrepresented in policy-based decisions is really important.
I want to get an example of a time where things have gone your way and things haven't gone your way, like you said just before, in terms of policy and meeting with people and lobbying.
I'll start with what went our way.
Yeah. Okay.
Last year, the regent's like, we're going to raise tuition to all of you. Students are like, oh, hell no. So students are in the Capitol every week lobbying legislators saying, hey, fund the UC, this X amount of money, because if not, they will raise tuition on us and we cannot afford that. And so that was definitely a giant win because of the legislator to fund the UC. We had like the Speaker of the Assembly submit like a letter to the regents saying, please do not raise tuition on our students. So like there was definitely a lot of momentum to stop the tuition hike, and we succeeded that last year.
Let me ask you this. Do you ever work on something that you expect is going to be a failure, but put work into it anyways because you think it's vital to do that work?
I'm going to go back to the tuition hikes, to be honest with you, because it's so easy to. I think we have to understand that, 20 years ago, tuition was not what it is now. We have to understand that even though there's this thing called the high fee, high aid model, where if you keep raising fees on students as high as they will, that means you just have more money to give them back for like financial aid. But that's a very like screwed up system. And so that's a model that we have right now in the UC system. And so it's definitely complex. And I think that tuition eventually will rise again. I think we can keep fighting, but sometimes the state's going to be like, higher ed's not that important to us this year, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be a time that's going to happen. But we did put in the work last year. We have to put in the work again this year.
Okay. So in terms of external affairs, what are the most important issues you see relevant to UC students, maybe even specifically UCSC students in the work that you do?
Well, there's two parts to that question. Okay. So what I will say is something that I think is very important for UC students is housing. I think we are one of the worst housing, markets in the world. So that's a situation that students here are living with. I think that's like, even though we've been in a situation where ELP reduced the guaranteed housing for the students from 4 to 3 years, right? So that's how bad housing is, where we're affecting ELP students. And hopefully we can try to get that reinstated for students because that's just not fair to them, right? So there's definitely one part to that, is that housing is definitely a big issue. For system-wide, I think retention and recruitment for underrepresented groups is very important. You think about the fact that the statewide demographic for African Americans is 6.5%, but we're barely making up 2 to 3% of the schools. Is very important because the Asian community is like overrepresented in the UC system compared to their state average, and the Latinx population is right about the same, give and take a percent or two. So when we have a Black community that's like underrepresented by half of the state demographic, that's a problem. So making sure that we're fighting for resources that are retaining and recruiting students of color, especially, Black students who are extremely underrepresented in the UC system, is very important. So I think those are issues I've always taken into consideration. And then we also lobby for Title IX policy. Right now, the UC system does a lot better than the federal. As we know, Betsy DeVos is stripping away a lot of the Title IX protections for survivors. And so we can't really stop the federal government at times because they have a lot of consolidated power right now. So it's very difficult, but we still try our best. But when it comes to the UC system can still instill its own Title IX policy. And that's what we're trying to advocate for. Say, hey, UC, lead the way. Don't just follow what other schools are doing. Lead the way. The West Coast, the best coast. So why don't we lead the way for Title IX policy, right? So I think Title IX policy is very, very important. So those are things we've kind of been working on this past year. There was a second question you had asked in there.
Immigration? Was that
yes, it was. So... Okay. We do actually lobby for immigration issues. We've actually, if there's a state or assembly bill that's about immigration, we most definitely will lobby for it if it's for students. So I know even then there's a tuition hike in like 2.5 weeks, so there's a vote on it, and so. But it's for non-resident students, so that's international, out of state, and undocumented students not protected by AB 540. So there are some undocumented students who are protected by certain bills. There's some that don't meet that criteria, so aren't protected by it. So they still be affected by the tuition hike. So we do lobby for immigration very, very often. We were in D.C. also lobbying for immigration federal wise. They also do it back here in Sacramento state issues. So we're always lobbying for immigration because that affects so many of our students. So it's very important for me. I think it's very, very important for folks to see that representation within the UC system and the advocacy that we do.
Do you feel there's a sort of tendency for the university to do a bare minimum with regards to how it accommodates for its students? Like you said, Title IX, you're lobbying for the UCSC or UC to be better and lead the way in that realm. But do you think that's the UC just trying to do like at least as possible so it can just meet some requirements? Or do you think that they're really sort of reaching? And do you think you have a part in helping them reach and pushing them to be better?
Yes to both of your questions. Okay. I think they do the bare minimum at times. I think there is this bare minimum standard. They're like, oh, we reached our quota, so we're fine, right? And you also have to understand there has to be an incentive for them to want to go above and beyond, right? For example, we have, this thing called HSI, which is Hispanic Serving Institution. And so if you reach a certain amount of Latinx students in your campus, then you get more funding from the federal government. There is no such thing for like Black students or, a lot of other students, like Asian representatives, and so it's one of those things where it's like there's an incentive for them to go above and beyond because there's more funding. But if there isn't funding involved long term, do you care about those communities? And that's the next question, right? So I do think they do the bare minimum. I think they could do good things at times. I'm not going to say, oh, all those people in UCOP are like all evil, right? Because there's some folks who are actually genuine, who are like really fighting. But those folks who usually see are fighting are usually on your campus, not in UCOP, to be very honest. I think we have to understand we're in this situation where the former head of Department of Homeland Security leads the UC system. So a lot of folks have a distrust for her, for Janet Napolitano. And it's understandable for that distrust, but we have to have some type of working relationship with her nonetheless because we have to get things done for the students, for our peers, right? So I do think the UC does bare minimum. However, I think the UC Student Association and our peers and the students behind us do our hardest to push the UC system to do better. And I think it's very convoluted in a lot of ways because it's like, oh, you're just in the meetings with her, y'all don't really care. It's like, no, we do care. I wouldn't travel all this much to my junior year of college while I am a full-time student if I did not care. It's a lot of work to push these people. Yeah. And so it's definitely complex. I would say that they do the bare minimum for a lot of things, a lot of issues. But there's other times where you'd be like, oh, wow, they're actually doing something really, really great. The West Coast really does lead. The UC system really does lead. You have to understand the UC system, like when it comes to like school policies, system-wide policies for schools, UC system leads the way in this country. Like we legitimately lead the way. It's like if UC does something, And then, you'll see a CSU, then a community college, right? And then it's the whole California, trifecta of higher ed. But then you also see other schooling systems from across the country do the exact same thing. So the UC system really does lead the way. So the policy that we push for, that we advocate for, really is very influential because it affects other schools. Because a lot of other schools have a lot more conservative or moderate bases who are less diverse. And so for us to push something for it to get accomplished, other schools like, oh, if that can happen there, why can't it happen here? So we do influence a lot of policy-based decisions, not just across the state, but across the country as well.
Yeah. So do you see any trends, and I guess you see leading the way currently? Maybe things that are sort of developing in the UC now that you see maybe in like a few years down the road will be sort of statewide and maybe nationwide. Can you think of anything like that?
No. Well, it's complex because I should say it's a combination of the UC and the state legislator. So if you see, California was one of the first states, I believe, I want to say it was one of the first states that allowed undocumented students to get in-state tuition. And then you kind of see every little state afterwards kind of follow down like a domino effect. I don't know if we were the first, but I know we were like definitely one of the first in the country to do so. It's because of the population we have here in California we have to serve. There's a lot of undocumented students who come from all parts of the world. And it's very important that they're able to have, access to higher education. And so that's state legislator kind of leading the way for this country. But then UC-wide, I want to say right now, they're looking at us for Title IX. We're in a fight now where federal is pushing down Title IX regulations. And what the UC does next can then be a domino effect to other schools and how they're going to treat Title IX. So I think we're in the process of that right now. I can't name anything on the top of my head, but I said we're definitely in the process of that.
Okay. Do you face any criticism? Because you are playing with direct institutions of power. So do you face any criticism trying to negotiate with that power? I mean, from a certain point of view, just the fact that you're like in proximity to that power might be a bad thing. But you're really trying to lobby and fight for the students. But at the same time, you're playing with these powers that could be considered evil. Do you face any backlash or criticism for that?
Always, and I have dealt with that critiques and pushback for 3 years now being in SUA. At the end of the day, I think a lot of folks kind of see me, they're going to see, oh, this like guy who just wants to be a politician, so he doesn't care about students, And a lot of folks see me in the suit and tie and the Capitol, and they're like, oh, he doesn't care about us. He's just there to meet people and network. Believe it or not, all the business cards that I get, I do not take. Like, I literally put them back down and give them to my interns so they can schedule like in-district visits. But I'm not here to network. None of these people know me. I don't like shake these hands to like, oh my gosh, here's my resume. I want a job in 2 years. Like, I'm not networking with these people. A lot of folks assume that because I'm there. And it's like, no, I'm actually doing the work that needs to be done. And at the end of the day, if folks do not believe that I'm doing this work, then that's on them. I can only convince you so much that I really care about students. Like, it's a lot of work to put on top of the units that we're already doing. I am literally, my neck can work right now. I took an incomplete last quarter. I'm doing 15 right now, plus being EVP and chair of UCSA. Like, I'm not doing this to network, you know what I mean? And so I think a lot of folks kind of see you in these institutions like, oh, you're not radical enough, or you're not black enough, and so we can't trust you in these spaces. It's criticism I've dealt with my whole entire life. I've always held my head high. I've always spoken with conviction. I wasn't people's standard of what black is. And so walk into a space, a lot of people think I'm like trying to sell them out or I don't care about the issues. It's like, at the end of the day, my mother makes $35K a year. My father's been in prison 4 different times. If anyone cares about divesting from prisons, it's going to be me. If anyone cares about supporting low-income families and students of color and their families, it's going to be me. But unless I say these things, unless I say my struggles and my experiences, and folks don't want to believe that I care about the issues, I shouldn't have to give you my street cred for you to believe that I care about the issues. My work speaks for itself. I think a lot of folks in politics are used to elected officials who boast all this stuff, and if anyone knows me, I sit at my desk, I kind of just sit there and do my work, kind of get out of the way, right? And so I don't boast my work, and so a lot of folks are caught up in boasting, so a lot of folks think that's the standard, but that's not how I work. I kind of just sit back, do the work that needs to be done. I go by the silent but deadly, but I think that's how I describe myself.
Okay. My next question to that is, you do do so much work. I mean, you talked to me a little bit about it before this interview, and it sounds like you do a lot of work, but why care so much for all the work that you do if maybe you aren't getting recognized for it necessarily?
Well, I didn't get into SUA to get like credit for it. I came in as a freshman. So fun fact, 2 weeks after I walked my high school graduation, June 29th, I emailed the IVP, the internal vice president-elect, say, how can I intern in SUA and work in the office?
Here?
Yeah, I did. Okay. So that was like right after I walked high school, and 3 months later, she ended up hiring me. So I didn't walk in here, I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get credit for this work. I did the work. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of people think if you hold your head high, you don't say the type of buzzwords, right? A lot of folks think that you don't care about the issues. I think there's people have an idea what politics is, and then there's a reality of what politics is. I didn't come here to get credit for it, so I don't care about getting credit for it. I do get the title of, say, I'm EVP and chair of UCSC. So I think, and I also have to acknowledge that there are a lot of student leaders who like the BSU president, who doesn't get the credit, system-wide, who doesn't get paid for their labor like I do. So I'm actually very grateful for the opportunities that I have with all the stress, with all the critiques. I appreciate the opportunity that I have. I care because it's who I was, right? It's who I am. It's how I was raised. I think when you come from a single-parent, household, you see things that other folks do not see. When you're one of the most underrepresented communities on this campus, there's a lot of things that you just do not see. And so I've always cared. I didn't come here for credit. I'm not going to leave here for credit. I don't network and give people my business cards so they can, ask me for a job or offer me a job. I care because the work has to get done. And I think if we're, supporting marginalized students within the campus, then work will always get done. I think if you have students who come from low-income communities who are in these positions, they have a perspective that not every student has, right? And it's important these folks are in positions of power to advocate for their peers. So you're right, I'm not going to get the credit for the work, and it sucks because I'm doing a lot of work. But at the end of the day, I don't mind that because the work is more important than the credit. And if someone disagrees, someone believes that they are more caught up in being a public figure or getting credit for something, then they shouldn't be in this work.
Do you find it is difficult to get marginalized and underrepresented voices to speak up for themselves? Has that been your experience? Do you think it's the opposite? Do you think they're very good at sort of speaking up for themselves? Do you think it's sort of a mix? What people do you encounter in trying to get those issues and voices out there?
Context. And here's why I say context. So the answer is yes and no. I don't need to speak for these communities because they can speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. So I would say, no, I don't need to speak for them. They are speaking for themselves at all times of the day. And I respect it and appreciate it. And I don't need to do that. I think because I am a Black student on this campus. So as marginalized as I am, I don't know what the Latinx experience, the Asian experience is. So these communities speak for themselves, right? But what I will say is, back to my point earlier that I mentioned, was you will not see these folks often in the Capitol speaking because a lot of folks have a distrust for the system and the institution. I have a personal issue with that because I believe a lot of people think that the work that they do is limited to, I wouldn't say limited to. What I will say is people have a genuine distrust for the system, and that's why you see a lot of folks who are in the megaphones, and the bullhorns, who are shouting and doing the strikes and the picket lines and so on. And that's very valid. That work is necessary, needs to be done. But I also like to see that energy in the Capitol at times, because it's like that community work that you're doing turns into policy. And if you're not there at the next step, which is where this work turns into policy, then it may not go through. So it's the community. So pretty much, I believe policy needs to be influenced by the community. Mm-hmm. So it starts with the community and what the community needs, and then it goes to policy. A lot of folks stop at the community part and don't want to go to policy, which is where my office and a lot of other UC folks come in. So it's not that they can't. I think it's folks generally do not want to because they have a distrust of the system, which is very valid distrust. I would never tell somebody to trust, the state capitol or the UC system because it screwed us over so many times in the past. I wouldn't tell people to trust it. But what I will say, though, is there's power in the policy. That's why I was telling my BSU president this. I was like, I invite her everywhere I go. I said, we're going to the Capitol. You want to go? We're going to this conference. You want to go? And the BSU president, a Black woman, in the Capitol speaking on these bills is very important. A lot of folks think these bills are fluffy, right? A lot of people think, this is just bills. They know it's not important. There is a police accountability bill. I think it was AB 392, I believe, where it's trying to change the need of force to be a lethal force to be used in interactions with police.
On UC campus?
No,
or just
in
statewide?
Statewide.
Okay.
Like that is a bill that is influenced by killings of unarmed black men in the state, in this country. And that started with community saying we need to change this. But once communities are done, they're never going to be done saying that. But once communities are done saying that, it turns into a policy, it turns into a bill that needs to affect the whole entire state. And so I said, BSU, I want to get y'all a van so I can go to Sacramento to speak on a police accountability bill, which affects us more than anybody else. Like, there is policy that you need to go speak on. You can just public comment for 2 minutes saying, hey, I'm a black student at UC Santa Cruz. I don't feel comfortable in this situation, and we need to hold our police accountable, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, whether you believe police should be held accountable or not is your thing, but the fact of the matter is you have an opportunity to speak on it, so why not speak on it, mm-hmm. right? And that's my biggest thing. So communities will always speak on these issues, but I think in different environments. It ranges from different environments, though.
So you do believe firmly in reform or reformation of a system that maybe in the past hasn't served you?
Well, I think there's this idea that if you're trying to reform the system from the inside, that it's not going to do enough, right? Which is a very valid concern. However, right now, I'm not looking in 20 years what the system's going to look like or when dismantle the system, right? What I'm looking for is in a year, after, hopefully when this bill is passed, how many black men are shot in the state. Mm-hmm. And that is the issue that I have right now. Mm-hmm. So I think I've always believed that there needs to be work that's done outside the system and inside the system. I go back to why I get the critiques, and it's because I'm inside the system, because I'm inside SUA, because I'm inside. I have the resource. I get paid for my work. I have a budget that makes me travel wherever I need to go in the state. And a lot of students don't have that. And so for me, it's one of those things where I do believe that we can reform the system from the inside, but that's not all, right? I think you can reform it from the inside to a degree, but there still needs to be work done outside the institution. Because if you don't have anybody on the inside, what's going to happen, right? When we think about, people think inside the system means, you need to be, the black governor of the state, And inside the system is having, the BSU president or the director of the African American Resource Center on a hiring committee for a new chancellor or a new vice chancellor, right? Like, that's inside the system, that's inside the institution, but there's a point of having that voice in these spaces, right? I think a lot of folks look at things very one-dimensionally in a lot of ways. I think mm-hmm. inside the system, it's like, you're inside the system. Mm-hmm. But it's like, do you want a hiring committee for the new chancellor, like all white people who make 6 figures? Like, do you want all that or no? Like, it's a question you have to ask yourself. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of folks are willing to push behind the beliefs they already have when they walk into college. Yeah. Like, I think people have very valid reasons why their opinions are formed the way they are, but I think we have to grow regardless.
Yeah. So you believe in maybe sort of a holistic way of approaching reform? So you say, there have to be people willing to work with the system, but then the people who are in the streets with bullhorns protesting, that's also valid. And the sort of those two meeting together is what gets the work done. Yes.
That's definitely it. I think a lot of folks on both sides think, only the picketing, only the rioting, all the striking, that's all that needs to happen. There are other folks who think only the policy and the lobbying needs to happen, and that's why work doesn't get done. Because you have folks on both sides like, the other side is not important. The other side's not important. And I've always been a firm believer in the both sides need to get done. I think, despite how watered down his beliefs were, I think you have the MLK nonviolence way, and you have the Malcolm X, like any means necessary way, any mm-hmm. means necessary. And both are very necessary movements. You need a person who's like nonviolent, no matter what happens, stand your ground, but don't be violent. You need other folks like, you know what? Time to light something on fire. You need both. You truly do. Mm-hmm. I believe that everyone has their capacity, though. I think that's the most important thing. My freshman year, when the APSA reclamation happened, I wasn't comfortable going there because I was like, it's my freshman year. My family was like, we don't want you to be in a situation where there's any police because we don't want you, get in a situation where like every black man, right? So I've always been weary of going to strikes and whatnot because I just feel as if as a black student, I will be the biggest target. I can be the one not doing anything and still be picked on because that's just my reality that I have. I think a lot of my peers who are doing the striking don't understand that. I think a lot of folks when I say, we're all in this together, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, the Asian community is kind of seen as non-threatening to institutional power because white supremacy has created this model minority myth. For example, Stephon Clark was a young black man who got shot and killed by police in Sacramento, where I'm from. Like, he was like, a mile away from my house. And His brother was speaking at city council about a month ago, and he was chanting, he was standing on the podium and yelling, and the police trying to get to him, but you had two Asian folks who were next to him keeping the police from touching him, right? Which is the difference between an ally and accomplice. That is an accomplice who are using their bodies to protect you. But that's my point, though. The black man will always be a target. You had two Asian folks who were next to him, and the police wouldn't touch them. And the Asian woman had a blonde wig on, so they could have thought that she was white, which could even prove my point even more. So I think I have my limits to not wanting to be part of some things because I don't want to put that target on my back. I'll be the first person to target my back, not anyone else. People can disagree with this all they want to. When it comes to suspended and expelled the most in this country, it is black men. When it comes to who is shot down the most in this country, it is black men. When we talk about who is incarcerated the most in this country, it is black men. So there will always be a target on my back no matter where I go. So I try to avoid a lot of situations where police presence is there. A lot of folks have a problem with me saying that. I don't particularly care because that's my experience. They don't have the experience that I go through. They haven't been through things I've been through. So I definitely think it can be frustrating at times. So I believe both are necessary. You need both to thrive in a reform, to dismantle a system, to fight for change. You need both sides. But I think people also have to understand that there's, for me, distrust going to places where there's a lot of police presence, but there's also folks' distrust of the system and the institution itself. That's why they would never want to go to the Capitol, And so there's both sides to it.
Sitting here with me, the things you're speaking about sound incredibly important to me. But a few questions ago, you mentioned that a lot of people don't necessarily think that anything you do is really important, that it's like fluffy. What do you have to say to those people who don't pay attention or who don't necessarily care about this very important work that you do? And that not just you, but other people in SUA do, because you said there's 5 other VPs that do work here.
I would definitely have to say it's a combination of the officers having to get involved in the communities and actually doing the due diligence to reach out to different leaders on campus. But I think it's also, in my opinion, a prerogative of folks coming to us as well. I think that's going to be a very unpopular opinion of mine, but I think it's very real. I think people are like, oh, you have to come to us, which I totally agree with. But going back to the student capacity and, when student leader, there's a reason why student comes first, right? So I think there is a due diligence of the students to come up to us, like, oh, hey, what's going on? What are you doing for me? I think a lot of folks do not like that opinion. I think it's necessary. There's a reason why when you're elected official as a town hall, you show up. There's a reason why I have office hours 3 hours a week. So you can show up and say, what are you working on? Talk to me. What have you been working on? Are there any conferences coming up? What are the policy issues that you're fighting for? So I think it's a combination of just us reach out to different community leaders, but also us and then our peers understand our capacity as student leaders. I travel a lot for my job. I haven't done it much this quarter because I'm not doing this my last quarter this year. I need to raise my GPA up. So I'm not going to travel as much this quarter. For the past 2 quarters, I was traveling a lot. So I think it's a combination of both. I think folks need to reach out to us, but I think we also have to reach out to them as well. I think it's a combination of both.
Okay. How do you not get exhausted from all that travel and also the work you have to do in the places that you travel to?
Trick question. I am exhausted. I am exhausted. I'm tired, fam. I don't know what to tell you about that. But the UC Regents have their meetings every other month. They're either at UCSF or UCLA. So those are 2. And then the UC Office of the President, so UCOP, is in Oakland. So those are meetings we have in Oakland. And then the other meetings we have are monthly board meetings. So there's, like I said, there's an EVP, an external vice president, at every UC campus. So we have different board meetings at every UC campus. So as Merced, Irvine, Berkeley, we're traveling across the state every month. So those are also places that we travel across the state to every UCs that have our monthly board meetings. Those are the ones that I chair. And then we also do Sacramento to go speak for different hearings and bills and such. And we also do in-district visits here in Santa Cruz. Mm-hmm. So I think we have a good amount of traveling throughout the state.
What's your relationship like with other UCs? Because you said you have board meetings sort of at all the campuses. What's the dialogue that is necessary for those to occur in the first place?
So we have those meetings usually the first or second weekend of every month. Mm-hmm. And those board meetings are for the Saturday and Sunday. So they usually start at 10, go to 4 or 5. So those are 7-hour meetings for Saturday and Sunday. So we're just stuck there having meetings for 2 days. And everything I've said in this interview, things that we talk about, just on a larger scale and less of like what we do and how to do it is how we focus on, you know? So we do focus on a lot of how we do it there. We just have different board meetings. And I think relationship-wise, I have a good relationship with all the other EVPs. I mean, they voted for me to be chair of our board of directors, so I think they like me enough I can get their votes. But no, I built a great relationship with the EVPs across the year and across the state. I built a great relationship with them. I love them dearly. I FaceTime a lot of them and call them a lot of them actually very often because you become friends with a lot of people in the board space. Yeah. You're in this because I have a lot of friends from student government on their campuses, and so every other UC's campus like student government elections are happening right now or just got done.
Oh, right, because they end earlier.
They end earlier. Yeah. Santa Cruz is the last one. So all my friends are keeping me updated on all their elections and whatnot. I'm like, ooh, juicy gossip, you know? So like it's kind of cool. So I have a great relationship with all of them. I think the EVPs love me. I love them. So in the board of directors, we have EVPs, which are the sole voting members, and then each of us have 2 interns. We have a legislative director who does policy-based work, you know, traveling to the Capitol and whatnot. They have an organizing director that does like the actions, the pickets, community work, dealing with labor and ethnic orgs, right? So those also make up the board of directors, which is why we're 40 of us, because we have interns as well who sit on the board of directors with us. And so I have 2 of them. I have 2 interns who do that, and so we bring them there. And so there's definitely a divide because you have the ODs, the organizing directors, create the committee called the Campus Action Committee, which is like organizing, right? Then you have the legislative directors who make the Government Relations Committee, and that's policy. And so, like I told you earlier, there's always gonna be that kind of divide, and organizing or policy based. I think we've done a good job of combining the work this year and making sure folks have shared governance in the space. But previous years they failed miserably. But I think we did a good job this year, actually. So,
you said you all talk about how you do it. So can you give me context for how you do it?
It's for example, last year, it's Norman Pattis, who was the UC regent. There was allegations against him for sexual assault and violence, right? And so that was the what, and then how was how in the hell to get him to resign or get out of his seat or get impeached, so on and so forth. And then it was board meetings and weekly, monthly calls to student leaders, like, oh, we're going to do this at the regents meeting. We're going to go to I think he had owned like a radio company, so we have folks that were striking there in SoCal, right? So like it was what was him sexually assaulting folks and allegations, and how to get him out of his seat. So it was speaking to regents meetings. It was every UCOT meeting we had speaking, hey Janet, hey, he should leave, right? Yeah. And then it's also protesting at his different companies in Southern California. I believe this was a year ago, so my memory isn't the best. I have awful long-term memory. I believe from my memory it was people protesting at his radio shop, I believe, a radio station in SoCal. I cannot be too sure, but that was the how. Yeah. It was how are we making sure that he gets the pressure to resign.
When you were talking earlier about the action and the policy, I thought you were talking more in an abstract sense, but what you all do is you organize for action to take place at the same time you're talking to people in the system and trying to get that policy passed, which is I didn't realize that.
When we do it right, that's how it works. We don't always hit the ball on the mark all the time. But when we get it right, it works out.
Okay. I'm curious what you may be working on now that you can talk about.
So right now, my office is conducting a housing survey. So we're going to be releasing a housing survey to campus in the next week or so. And it's less statistical, more of these personal testimonies. If we're always traveling, it's important that we have testimonies for students. So we're sending that out to get testimonies for students. We're also trying to get the UC regents and city council members or mayor onto campus. So that's 2. And then 3, we're usually in the Capitol every other week for hearings, speaking during public comment. So things kind of died down towards the end of the year because folks, it's spring quarter, folks are getting tired. Yeah. They've been doing this for a whole entire year. But usually what we're doing now is just Capitol visits and district visits, and then kind of on-campus work and making sure we're getting some elected officials on the campus before the month is up. Be good.
Public comment as in it's just the public speaking to the legislature, or is it specific committees when they're speaking about certain bills that you go in?
Committees, it's the committees. And we speak during committees. So it's like the state legislature is like 50, 40 people, and there's a committee of like 6 or 12, right? And that's what we're going to speak during public comment on. And so that's where we go. And we kind of speak during public comment on on those. We also do in-office visits, so we'll drop by and say, can we talk to the staffer for 20 minutes about higher ed policy? Like, oh yeah, sure, so that's also part of it, just making sure that those folks are constantly knowing what we're advocating for, what they need to advocate for us.
And how do those conversations usually go?
We talk for 15 minutes, and the staffer says, yeah.
But that's like worth it.
That's
Your
normal.
work.
It's work and it's normal. That's how they do it. Because they can't say if the member is going to vote yes or no in this bill because they can't commit to that, right?
Yeah.
So they kind of sit here and say, yes, we understand this. Yes, and they kind of agree or they disagree or something. But they're actually very welcoming. Like, I think a lot of people think all these big wigs, are all pretty awful people. But they've actually been very welcoming my 3 years of doing these visits. They've also just been very open and great to people. So I'm not worried about this at all. I think now, mind you, they can listen to us, but they might not always agree with us or like pass that policy. But when we ever say, hey, this is the issues we're advocating for, they say, we understand, and they take it and they're very respectful. There's never like a time where like a staff will curse you out, or attack you, or actually go after you like that. So I mean, we do a good job.
It sounds like a grind, but I would imagine by this time you have like an elevator pitch, or maybe you just have it all like off the top of your head.
I think a combination of both.
Really? Okay. Can you give me a little bit?
Well, the reason I'll say that is we have my interns who've been doing this for years, right? And then you have first years who also go to these places with us who don't have it on top of their heads. They have to have like a pitch, right? Because that's just how they go, So you have experienced folks kind of lead the conversation, know what they're talking about, and folks who are trying to get the experience who are kind of like, okay, mentioning one or two things, taking a step back, let's listening and learning and witnessing things for themselves. So there's a combination of like know on top of your head. My legislative director, James Goldwyn, and my chief of staff, Vignesh Iyer, I'm give them both shout outs, are very experienced in this. So they have things on top of their head. So we have folks who don't have that type of experience. They kind of need like elevator pitches,
Okay. You have one more year here, right?
Mm-hmm.
What work are you trying to do in the future with these sort of skills? Maybe post-college? What are your goals or intentions with this? Maybe you don't even know yet.
I love the work that I'm doing, and I don't have any intention of stopping. If you don't, I have no intention of stopping this work. Now, what capacity I do it in is another question. I just got recently accepted into an internship next year for our campus, and so I'll be doing an internship already that I have next year. And so there's work that I'm already going to be doing next year. I don't want to answer the question. I want to keep doing the work whether I'm in this job or not. I like the SUA despite all its flaws, despite the fact that people do not like me or do not want to see me in these positions. I love the work that I do. So I don't intend to stop anytime soon. I will stop this work of advocacy here on campus when I graduate. I have another year left, so that's when I'll stop, is in a year. I have no intention of stopping. This is my bread and my butter. I love it so much. So.
Is there anything I didn't ask you yet that you would like to talk about, or you would like me to ask you?
I'll say one last thing from your previous question. I think SUA seen as is like evil institution.
Really?
Oh yeah, buddy, it is. I think people see it as an evil institution. I think people have a distrust for any system or institution, and that is understandable, like I mentioned earlier. However, I think a lot of people have a distrust for SUA, so they think that gives them an excuse to treat SUA officers less than. As, you're an SUA, so we're going to treat you, like you're not like a good student or a good person. It's like, no. I can separate the personal from the work. I can do this. If you can, that's a reflection of you, There are orgs who have left SUA saying this place is too toxic, and we can't be in this space anymore. And that's fine. As an SUA officer, I can say, that really sucks. I will hate to see any student group feel like they can't have their equal voice in this space. But then when I see folks from that org who say these things, we're really chill casually because we understand that was work for the community, for the spaces, but we don't have any ill harm with each other, And so I think a lot of folks see SUI as an evil institution that makes a lot of bad decisions at times. I think we've made some bad decisions in the past, but I think people think that, SUA's done this. Or, there'll be times where SUA made a decision like 3 years ago, my freshman year, and because people who were affected by it are still here, it's like, they're going to treat me like bad. I'm like, I was a freshman when this happened. I had no control over this decision. So it's like, why am I being vilified, right? So I think that's a very issue that I think folks have to like get past. And I think also I'm in a situation where I've had friends in SUA who were not the most popular, well, at least not in the space. Like, they're popular outside the space. If they keep, like, they won their election, they're popular and to a degree, but they weren't popular in the space because of things they've said or bridges that they burned. And then I, quote unquote, inherited those and that animosity. And I despise that so much. I'm not my predecessor. I'm not, my friends from 2 years ago, from last year. I am Davon Thomas. So if you keep saying, oh, we don't like you, I'm like, why? Oh, because your predecessor did this or your friend did this. I'm like, no, why do you not like me? If you can't tell me why, that's a problem. I've done a very good job, in my opinion, this year of trying to be open, transparent, and welcoming different groups. As my predecessor, actually. A lot of my friends have always done so. But there's you were friends with this person. They burned the bridge, so I can't be friends with you or I can't work with you. And it's like, okay, so you don't want work to get done then. And that's a very genuine opinion I've always had, where it's like there are a lot of people in different organizations who I personally dislike, but it's like, but the work needs to be done. So I can push that aside for, like, if this isn't real, but if there was a BSU president my freshman year that I didn't like, right? And then does that mean I'm going to stop, like, working with BSU for the next 3 years? No. Does that mean I'm going to vilify every BSU president that follows them? No. So why am I the same way? I understand people have this institution, it's a system, I get it. I'm still a person. I'm still one of the most marginalized voices on this damn campus. And I do great work for the student body. And I'm not a person who really brags often, but it can be frustrating at times when folks do person, your friend from, like, last year or the year beforehand, said these things to me, so I think you're a bad person too. And it was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I didn't do anything to you. I was a freshman 2 years ago who didn't have any power, who just interned, was in the office a couple times throughout the week, did a lot of cool work. And so I think a lot of people make their assumptions, kind of hold a lot of animosity and anger and grudges, and nothing gets done that way. So I understand why people have a distrust for the system, but that I'm not the system. I am Davon Thomas. I'm a person. I'm a human being. If you don't treat me according to so, that's a problem. I think this might be another unpopular opinion of mine, but just because I'm in this position doesn't mean you get to be rude to me. There's this idea that you get to be rude to me, that, I think people think accountability, there's a fine line between accountability and then just kind of like being hateful and, being rude to people. A lot of people forget that. A lot of people forget that you can hold SOA accountable without trying to belittle me or try to strip me of my character or my blackness, right? And so I think a lot of folks do not understand that, and it is very frustrating. Because I try to do the best work I can. Mind you, it's not perfect, right? Mind you, folks need to say, hey, Davon, I feel like that policy that you believed in wasn't, progressive enough. I need you to go harder and go lefter and all that. And that's fine, But you come to me and you say, I'm not doing my work. I don't care about students and their issues and their lives because, I'm not part of your political space. That's a problem, right? And if I'm not part of your friend group, because it's a different space. There's student government space, there's like union laboring space, there's ethnic orgs, and there are all these different spaces on campus, right? And it's, if you're not part of, this org, you're not black enough. If you're not part of this org, you're not political enough. If you're just in this org, like, et cetera, and it's just this whole... And it's just tiresome, There's a lot to kind of take in. You're 20 years old, trying to make your mark on the road and advocate for your peers, and you're kind of like taking in all this pressure that's been placed on you by your peers. I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I have. I'm happy. I love the work that I do. I've dealt with this drama for 3 years, and I'm still here. So obviously, I don't let it affect me that much, or I would have quit a long time ago. But I think a lot of folks kind of don't see the human side of us, kind of see SUA as an institution, which is valid, SUA as an institution. But before I was an SUA EVP, I was just a student. And that's who I will always be at the root of who I am. And if you forget that or treat me differently, that is a problem. And that's a reflection of your morals and your beliefs as well. So, yeah.
Well, on that note, Davon Thomas, Student Union Assembly, Vice President of External Affairs. Is that your full title?
This is my full title, yes.
Thank you for speaking with me today.
I appreciate it.